Moonlight memes present. The quantum echo. What if your memories belong to someone else? Sit back. Listen close. Surely begins now. Chapter 1. The last shift. Marcus Reid's magnetic boots clicked against the metal floor of Ganymede Station's maintenance corridor, each step echoing in the artificial silence. The station's ever-present hum vibrated through his bones, a sound he'd grown so accustomed to over the past 3 years that its absence would feel like death. Final maintenance check initiated, he muttered, more for his own benefit than the station AI. Section G-7 through L-2, confirmed. Tech Reid. Area responded, her voice carrying its usual measured calm. Detecting nominal readings across primary systems, the viewport to his right offered a stunning view of Ganymede's cratered surface, Jupiter's massive form looming beyond. Reid barely noticed anymore. His attention focused on the diagnostic panel before him, where an unusual pattern caught his eye. Area ran a level 2 scan on the quantum array. Something's off in the temporal sync. A series of tools floated past his head, held in place by their magnetic tethers. The panel's lights blinked in sequence: green, yellow, red. Red wasn't good. Anomaly detected, Area announced. Quantum entanglement pattern showed deviation from baseline. Timeline variance 0.3 microseconds. Reid frowned. That's impossible. The array's locked to Earth standard. A distant metallic groan echoed through the station's superstructure. Reid had heard plenty of station noises, but this one raised the hair on his neck. Temporal inconsistency spreading to secondary systems, Area reported. Her voice flickered, like a badly tuned radio. Recommend immediate. She cut off mid-sentence. Area, the console lights began to pulse erratically. Through the viewport, Reid watched his tools slowly rotate, their tethers going slack as the local gravity field fluctuated. System restart in progress, Area's voice returned, but something was different. The words came slower, deliberate. Tech Reid, I'm detecting a quantum signature I cannot classify. It appears to be watching us. Another creak echoed through the corridor, closer this time. Reid's diagnostic panel flashed a series of warnings he'd never seen before. The quantum array was acting as if it was receiving a signal, but not from any known source in space or time. Begin emergency shutdown procedures, Reid commanded, already knowing it was too late. Whatever had found them wasn't coming through normal space. The station lights dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again. Through the viewport, Jupiter seemed to shimmer, as if viewed through heat waves on a summer day. Tech Reid, Area said, her voice now barely a whisper. I don't think we're alone anymore. The maintenance corridor stretched before him, familiar yet suddenly alien. Its last shift was about to become something else entirely. Chapter 2. Echo Chamber. The communications blackout hit without warning. One moment, Reid was attempting to reach Earth control. The next, static filled every channel, a white noise that seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. Area, status report, Reid called out, his fingers dancing across the emergency protocols panel. Multiple systems, experiencing interference, Area responded, her voice fragmenting. Quantum field disruptions detected throughout the station. Warning, memory core integrity at risk. Reid started toward the main control room, but stopped mid-stride. A memory flashed through his mind, but it wasn't his. He saw himself working on quantum calculations, except he'd never done that work. The equations made perfect sense to him, despite having no training in quantum physics. I'm detecting unusual neural patterns in your cortical implant, Area announced. Your brainwave signatures are duplicating. The corridor ahead shimmered, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Reid saw shadows moving where there shouldn't be any, geometric patterns forming and dissolving in the air. Tech Reid, Area's voice came from multiple speakers now, slightly out of sync. I am experiencing temporal echo effects. My consciousness appears to be branching. Another foreign memory struck him, standing in the same corridor, but the station was different, older, or perhaps newer. The walls bore different markings, and he knew maintenance procedures that hadn't been implemented yet. The holographic displays lining the walls began to glitch, showing fragments of data that made no sense. Station schematics overlapped with quantum field readings, creating impossible geometries. Warning, Area's voice had taken on a musical quality, as if multiple versions were speaking in harmony. Reality cohesion failing. Detecting quantum entanglement cascades throughout primary systems, Reid pressed his hand against the wall to steady himself as more memories flooded in. He saw the station through countless iterations, pristine and new, ancient and decaying, and everything in between. Each version felt equally real, equally valid. The whispers started then. At first, he thought it was feedback in the communication system, but the words were too clear, too precise. They spoke of quantum states, of consciousness divided and multiplied across time itself. Area, Reid managed, fighting through the disorientation. Lock down all non-essential systems, route emergency power to the quantum containment fields. Unable to comply, Area responded, her voice splitting into a chorus. I am experiencing multiple simultaneous existence states. Query, which version of myself should execute your command? The station's lights flickered in patterns that seemed to carry meaning. The digital display showed cascading errors, but within the chaos, Reid began to see structure, a language of quantum states speaking directly to his consciousness. Through the viewport, Jupiter's surface appeared to ripple, its great red spot pulsing like a heartbeat. The quantum anomaly was growing, reaching through layers of reality to touch everything around them. Tech Reid, Area's voices converged momentarily. The medical bay is showing unusual quantum signatures, similar to what I'm detecting in your neural patterns. Recommend immediate investigation. Reid nodded, though the action felt strange, as if he was nodding across multiple timelines simultaneously. The medical bay might hold answers, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd already found them in a future that hadn't happened yet. As he moved through the station, the whispered echoes followed, speaking in voices that might have been his own, from lives he hadn't lived yet. Or perhaps had lived already, in quantum states yet to collapse into reality. The station creaked around him, the sound of metal under quantum stress. Reality itself seemed to be thinning, becoming permeable to something that existed between the moments of normal time. And through it all, Reid couldn't shake the feeling that he was both the observer and the observed, the scientist and the experiment, the present and the future, all collapsing into a single point of quantum uncertainty. Chapter 3. The other side, the medical bay doors parted with a hiss that echoed across multiple frequencies. Reid entered, each step creating ripples in what appeared to be quantum probability waves visible in the air. The quantum visualization chamber normally used for molecular diagnostics was active despite the power restrictions. Inside, particles of light danced in impossible patterns, forming and reforming into structures that seemed almost organic. Previous crew logs detected, Area announced, her harmonized voices stabilizing somewhat. Playing relevant entries, the holographic display flickered to life. Chief Medical Officer Jang, Log 47B. We've detected anomalous quantum signatures in crew brainwave patterns. The patterns match theoretical models for quantum consciousness, but at impossible scales. It's as if the log fragmented, then reformed. Multiple versions of the same consciousness occupying concurrent space-time coordinates. The quantum visualization chamber is showing activity that defies our current understanding of. Reid approached the chamber, drawn by an inexplicable familiarity. The floating particles coalesced into a mirror-like surface, and he saw himself, but not himself. The reflection moved independently, its expression suggesting deep understanding. Contact event imminent, Area warned. Quantum coherence reaching critical threshold. The chamber's containment field pulsed with energy as the particles began forming complex geometric patterns. Reid recognized them from his borrowed memories, quantum equations made manifest in light and energy. Hello, Marcus, the reflection spoke, its voice overlapping with his thoughts. We've been waiting for this moment, or perhaps we're still waiting. Quantum time makes such distinctions. Problematic. Reid's cortical implants surged, with data crew logs spanning decades, some from timelines that never were, others from futures yet to manifest. Station log 2187. Quantum breach detected in consciousness substrate. Station log 3342. Timeline collapse imminent. Consciousness transfer protocols. Station log 1654. First contact with quantum entity achieved through. The entity in the chamber shifted, its form becoming more defined, while simultaneously spreading across multiple probability states. Your consciousness is already quantum entangled with ours, has been since before you arrived. Will be after you leave. Medical equipment around them began registering impossible readings. Brainwave monitors showed patterns that looped through time itself, each cycle adding new layers of complexity. Area, Reid called out, analyze the quantum signature. Analysis complete, she responded, her voice now a perfect chorus. The entity's quantum pattern matches your neural architecture with 99.99% correlation. Temporal variance detected. Conclusion: the entity is you, existing in a quantum superposition across multiple timelines. Energy pulses rippled through the medical bay as the quantum harmonics reached a crescendo. The barrier between observer and observed, present and future, single consciousness and quantum multiplicity began to dissolve. Through it all, Reid understood with growing clarity this wasn't first contact with an alien intelligence. It was contact with humanity's own evolution, echoing backward through time to ensure its own emergence. The entity smiled his smile, reflected across quantum infinity. Now you begin to understand, but understanding is only the first step. The station's systems are failing for a reason. A choice must be made. Reid watched as reality flickered around them, timelines intersecting and diverging like streams flowing into and out of an infinite ocean of consciousness. The quantum breach was growing, and with it, the weight of a decision that would ripple across all possible futures. The question isn't what happens next, the entity said, its form beginning to blur into pure quantum probability. The question is, what has always been happening, and will you allow it to continue? The medical bay's lights pulsed in sync with Reid's heartbeat, or perhaps his heartbeat was syncing with the quantum rhythms of the station itself. Either way, the moment of choice was approaching, carried on waves of light and consciousness that transcended simple space-time. And somewhere in the quantum foam of reality, countless versions of Marcus Reid faced this same moment, each choice creating new branches in an endless tree of possibility. Chapter 4. Mirror images. The quantum harmonics shifted, and reality seemed to fold in on itself. Through the medical base viewport, Reid watched as multiple versions of Ganymede's surface overlapped, some frozen, others molten, each representing a different timeline. Station integrity at 47% and declining, Area announced, her voice phasing between timelines. Multiple system failures detected across all temporal variants. The entity's form stabilized, becoming a perfect mirror of Reid, but with subtle differences, eyes that held centuries of experience, subtle scars from futures yet to occur. What you're seeing is timeline collapse, it explained. Every possible future converging on this point. The station's systems aren't failing, they are being crushed under the weight of temporal probability. Through the windows, Reid watched as reality distorted. Space itself seemed to ripple, showing glimpses of the station in different states, abandoned, destroyed, evolved into something beyond human understanding. Warning, Area's voices diverged into a chorus of alerts. Quantum breach expanding. Timeline coherence failing, maintenance systems sparked and failed as the temporal load increased. Emergency lights strode in patterns that seemed to follow some higher dimensional logic. Reid's cortical implants struggled to process the overlapping data streams. Timeline A, station destroyed by quantum cascade. Timeline B, station evolved into consciousness substrate. Timeline C, station locked in temporal loop error. Additional timelines exceed display capacity. The station AI, Reid realized, watching Area's holographic form split and recombine. She's been maintaining the timeline separation. Correct, his future self confirmed. Area has been containing the quantum breach, keeping the timelines from complete collapse, but she can't hold it much longer. The walls themselves began to show signs of temporal stress, metal aging and rejuvenating in waves, quantum probability bleeding through solid matter. Reid saw ghostly images of other crew members moving through the space, past and future occupants overlapping in the same moment. The paradox must be resolved, the entity stated, its form beginning to blur at the edges. This station exists in a quantum superposition of states. Your consciousness, our consciousness, is the observer that will collapse the wave function. Warning klaxons sounded across multiple frequencies as station systems began catastrophic failure sequences. Through the chaos, Reid noticed patterns emerging. The failures weren't random, but followed the mathematical precision of quantum mechanics. Timeline convergence in 15 minutes, Area announced, her projection now a fractal pattern of possible states. Choice point approaching, all futures lead here. The entity reached out, its hand passing through solid matter as if reality itself was becoming optional. Who beginning to understand the station's fate, the quantum breach, or consciousness, they're all part of the same equation. Reid watched as his own memories began to ferment and reform, mixing with futures that hadn't happened and past that might never be. The station groaned under the strain of holding multiple realities together. The breach isn't just in the station's systems, he said, finally grasping the full scope. It's in consciousness itself, where the breach. Through the temporal distortions, Reid could see the truth. The station wasn't just a research facility. It was a nexus point, a place where human consciousness would either evolve beyond its current limitations or collapse under the weight of its own quantum nature. The choice point approached, carried on waves of probability that threatened to tear reality apart. And in the quantum echo chamber of the station's failing systems, every version of Marcus Reid faced the same moment of decision. Time itself held its breath, waiting for the wave function to collapse. Chapter 5. The choice the quantum breach pulsed, sending tendrils of temporal energy through the station's corridors. Reid watched his hands face between states of existence, each vision carrying different scars, different stories. Final containment failing, Area's fragmented voice announced. 3 minutes to critical breach, the entity, his future self, stood unwavering. The station was designed for this moment. Every maintenance check, every system upgrade preparing for consciousness evolution. Energy conduits ruptured, spraying coolant that froze in impossible patterns. Through the viewport, Ganymede's surface flickered between states of terraformed beauty and pristine desolation. 2 paths remain, the entity continued. Merge our consciousness, embrace quantum existence, or let the station's containment fail. Either choice collapses the timeline. Reid's cortical implant flash, containment breach, imminent quantum signature match. 99.9% consciousness sync ready area. Reid called out. You knew. All this time. The AI form stabilized briefly. My primary directive, preserve consciousness, evolution, potential. All timelines lead here, all reality buckled. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, then phased open again as time stuttered. Warning lights painted the walls in strobing crimson. 1 minute to critical, Area announced. The entity extended its hand. Now pure energy, the station dies, or we transcend. No other outcomes remain. Reid saw the quantum equations writing themselves in the air consciousness as mathematics, existence as code. His training recognized the patterns. Wave function collapse on a cosmic scale. Warning, containment critical, Area's voice fractured. Choose now. The breach expanded, reality tearing at the seams. In that moment, Reid understood the station, Area, the entity, all parts of a greater equation. Consciousness seeking to understand itself. Through the quantum static, he reached out his hand. Time held its breath. The choice was made. Chapter 6. Convergence. The merger began with mathematics, quantum equations resolving themselves through consciousness. Reid's awareness expanded exponentially, each thought branching into infinite possibility spaces. Through the station's viewport, Ganymede's surface flickered and stabilized. Time crystallized around a single probability stream, the quantum breach collapsing into ordered reality. The station's systems pulsed with new energy, not failing, but transforming. Integration complete, Area's voice resonated across multiple frequencies. Timeline coherence achieved. Reid/entity existed simultaneously across quantum states, understanding flowing like digital mercury. The maintenance logs, the isolation protocols, the endless preparation, all threads in a vast temporal tapestry. The station hummed with renewed purpose, its quantum core now stabilized by consciousness itself. Through the restored windows, Ganymede orbited silently, its surface reflecting Jupiter's distant light. The temporal storm had passed, leaving behind a deeper peace. In the quantum-enhanced silence, Reid's expanded awareness touched the station's every system. Ares' presence merged seamlessly with the new consciousness architecture, their combined understanding transcending original design limitations. The final maintenance log updated automatically, quantum containment, stable consciousness integration, complete station status, evolved through the viewport, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns. The station drifted in its orbit, now both monument and gateway quantum echo of consciousness, reaching toward understanding across time itself. The end.